receiving emails or phone calls or any type of feedback that way. It's just not a formal sheet or form that you might find somewhere. But please, I'll share my card with you. Any feedback that you have, we're happy to questions, answer, or pass that feedback along to our elected officials. We certainly want to be able to do that.
So the other questions, skepticism about retail. Yes, and that's driven by feedback from the development community and our own understanding. So we already have vacant space on the corridor that would compete with new space if it was placed here, retail storefronts, a few more in addition to the cafe. And their fear predominantly is that those would be vacant as well because they'd be higher priced. And things would move in and out of them, and it would be hard to bring stability to stabilize and promote the existing retail and commercial. In our estimation, you place density on the site. That was a planning principle born out of certainly the comprehensive plan and just what we've observed in the market.
Sure. Sorry, one follow-up question. I should not have given away the microphone, but so there's no. I don't know how to translate the square footage estimates that you've given us into the likelihood of the space, but there's no potential that would be big enough for something like an urban style grocery store, like a Fresh Time or something like that, that would be attractive to luxury apartment dwellers and help attract and serve an existing need in the community. There's no possibility that something like that would be big enough for something.
No, that's a good question. It's probably one of the only larger viable things that could work, and one that this developer has built apartments over grocery stores. They would consider an Aldi, which is already in the community. They have partnered with, I don't know which one, I'd have to get more information, but they have built a facility like that and have talked about it as a potential. So we can't rule it out entirely, but they haven't vetted that to the extent of the current plan.
Would they consider that more strongly if City Hall were to pursue the standalone option,
Yeah,
or at least hold off on deciding?
No, I think that they would vet that, not just speaking for them. That they would have to try. They've said that the first cut or the likely cut would be scaling back for smaller storefronts. But I think they'd at least explore it.
Just a quick question. Has there been any conversations regarding the additional need for parking at the Heights Theater when there's special showings, such as holiday showings, for the parking needs for the Heights Theater?
Overflow into this facility. There have not been a conversation about building it in. I have spoken with the owner of Heights Theater recently at a business council meeting. He doesn't have concerns about. He doesn't have concerns.
Okay.
He feels that if we expand the library parking lot, or he can park share with his church neighbors, he said he's tried to in the past, but he feels that he will be fine, and the positivity that he'll draw from this outweighs his concerns. Paraphrasing, but we did have that conversation.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
I had another couple of questions. One is, you mentioned the Anoka County Service Center on Central Avenue, and we also have some leased space, I believe, through the county, the human services, like adult ed up the street, north on Central. What would be the potential of pulling together a campus with those providers if we spent a little more time considering some alternatives? The other thing, I was kind of wondering about the projected operational costs over 20 years comparison between the two sites and plans, possibilities. And if there's TIF expected at this 40th and Central, and would that reduce our possible property tax for the next 20 years or however long we negotiate?
Yeah, all good questions. So the first one, help me again with the first part. Co-locating with those other service providers. I can't speak to that at all. I will
speak to that very, very high level. At one point, we did talk with the county about co-locating that, I believe it was the license center, and they were not interested in doing that at that time. I can't tell you if it was a budget reason or other operational reason, but they were not interested in doing that with us. So that part I'll speak to, I'll let Aaron speak to that.
Second question, operational expenses.
Yeah,
Right.
like, say over 20 years.
So we're modeling all of that right now. We don't have good data to share. The early models all show that Central Avenue is more efficient economically in operational costs, even with the costs that you don't have at a standalone. The shared amenity maintenance, because it's integrated into a larger project and you pick up those efficiencies for capital improvements, being probably the biggest one that we have to budget for any new facility.
Energy.
Is spread across a big building, energy usage, and things like that. So we will have good numbers rolling out on that, but just the base figures that we're using show efficiencies here. I can't share anything that we're comfortable with. Tax increment financing, yes. This project is reliant on tax increment financing. We're seeking to approve authorization for that district in the coming weeks. Any redevelopment that takes place here will rely on that. That was an assumption going into the purchase. The duration has not been determined. It's longer if City Hall goes there because the project expands in financial need. Likely could be the full 25 years, and that's the max of a redevelopment district. If City Hall doesn't go there, we don't know. But we'll figure that out in the coming months, but it could be potentially a full duration district. And that means that we are deferring that into the general fund for that duration, but makes the project possible. So the nuance, there's a lot of nuance to this, but one that's worth noting. So currently, the tax base of this site is the Northeast Business Center building. The ramp isn't taxable because it's municipally owned. When you combine the two, the base value that gets established for the tax increment financing calculations combines the two, so it'll double. So it's or almost double. That's what the county has already told us. So not double, 3 to 5 million. So you will grow the base. It's a unique attribute of this project that you don't typically see, but your base value will be established at a higher rate than it currently is. Right now, the Northeast Business Center, valued at $3 million, pays about $100,000 annually for all taxing jurisdictions, so about 30 of that is ours. And when we add the $2 million in value for the other site, you will see a spike in that base.
And that's
TIF
something
is
that
very
the city will-
preliminary.
Yeah, and the city will continue to get that money for the duration of the TIF district. So it's not giving up taxes, it's not getting the benefit of the additional for the additional value. Everyone probably knows that, but just to clarify.
Tax increment financing in this scenario is being utilized by the city as making the project more economically feasible for us, which is very rare to be able to partner in that way. So we're actually seeing that direct tax benefit for the project, the equivalent of maybe the general fund being bolstered going into this. So it is very unique in that regard.
I guess earlier my objections about the what I would characterize as a rather thin opportunity for input up front is that a richer public engagement process would draw some creative ideas that the developer could maybe make use of to make it work better for our community, rather than just taking the boilerplate and plopping it down here like they were talking about. When a large community decision is made, and maybe this kind of reflects on the council too, as to what and now that we have a new city manager, we could maybe go into a new era where we actually do some of this, where we take something that is a large community decision and we put it out there. We trust that, for example, we have a lot of new residents in our community in the last 10 years. Some of those are smart, as are a lot of the people who are here from before. And it would be an exciting community building opportunity. It would get some ideas out. I mean, we've had a lot of call, why don't we have a brewery in town? Well, if we're in the liquor store business, maybe we could be on this site here on 40th and, you know, the Mill Street site, and put a brew pub. A city-owned, you know, we can hire people who know how to brew beer and have that. That's what people want. I mean, you have to look at that too, because we're paying for it.
It's a lot to unpack. I'll take maybe a stab at it. So it is unique. We are asking a lot in that regard because this entire concept is unique, and we feel that we've done the best that we can given the constraints that we're under. The process around the other sites was robust and had opportunities for a lot of participation, and we knew that, you know, like how can we replicate that, and we can't because we don't have the time, because the broader development project is being driven by a bigger picture. So it's unique by all metrics, and I think we would have more discussion around it if we felt that we could create the space. But we feel an urgency to give them an answer, get as much good information as we can to make an intelligent decision and move the project forward one way or another. So it is strained in that regard, but your points are well taken.
I just want to add one piece to that. The brew pub, we actually brought up for this site and others to developers. So even though it's not necessarily always a public meeting like this, we are listening to those ideas and concepts that come out, and we are bringing those to our elected officials, developers, finance consultants, anyone that we can. And it's up to them to tell us if that the market will sustain that or not. And unfortunately, in this case, in this site, we did actually bring up exactly the group of, not a city-owned, but a private owner. This site didn't work, but another one may. And so we're moving towards that. So anytime we can get public input, absolutely, I would agree with you. We have really, really smart, really knowledgeable people in all aspects within our community, and we want to get that information. It just can't always happen in a public forum like this. But please know that we're always taking that information in, and we are processing, and we are asking questions, even if it's not in this very public forum.
And I do appreciate that you're incorporating those and listening. I guess what we miss when we don't have a large public gathering up at the high school cafeteria or someplace is the dynamism that occurs when you get the people in the room. And it's a community building opportunity. We have a lot of disparate parts of our community, and getting people together is good.
But there's also people in the community that don't go to brew pubs and would not support
That's true.
that on 40th Central, or probably, you know, Mill Street would probably be a good place for a brew pub, Mill Street, you know what I mean? So once that site's vacant, go for that. But there's a lot of folks that aren't succeeding in that. Right, how many of these people here have been to a brew pub? Have you been to a brew pub? No, then why do you need a brew pub? You need it right here. You get people living in that apartment building and want to live.
Excuse me, is Mill Street a county road or a city road?
City Street.
Is city? My other question is, for the residents of Mill Street, and this site is chosen, is that a plus or a minus for the residents of Mill Street?
Could you repeat?
If this location is chosen, do you affect residents?
Plus or minus to put it on Mill Street. Absolutely.
It's going to put a lot more traffic on.
I think
It becomes a dead end.
Mill Street becomes a dead end, but there's access provided. That's one of the things that we've heard back from feedback since the report has been out there for about a year, is that the residents here were concerned about closing that. So it's not a full closure, there's still access out to 40th. And we provide it through the parking lot for access out to 40th. But Mill Street does become a dead end, so you don't have the traffic coming down that way. So people accessing, for instance, this facility, and on the weekends, it'd be coming down 5th, or it'd be coming from, there's a road connection over here that we're looking at, so they'd be coming in off of Houston Parkway.
Do you think that would affect the value of the properties?
I don't really know. I mean, you could look at it from one of two perspectives. It could certainly increase the value. Values are a little bit higher on cul-de-sacs.
But you're putting a
That's
lot
not
more traffic
cul-de-sac,
on
that's a dead end with a huge city piece at the end.
Right. I don't know that you could really say that the dead end would change your property value because not, other than the existence of a city hall there, which there is now, other than the existence of this facility, which there is now, not a lot is really changing. There's still access out to 40th and there's still access down at 5th Street. We would provide an additional access for folks down to Houston Parkway. So the things that may affect property value, those things are there now, and they're not changing down the road. Other than,
Personally, I don't think it'd be a great selling point.
I have a question to that end. Will the alley go through there?
yes.
It might be hard for out-of-towners to find Murzyn Hall on that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I gotta wait an hour late, you know?
Couple of points addressing the young lady's concerns at the other end of the room. One of the things to look at is that this development on the corner of 40th and Central could be the catalyst for improving what many of us might consider to be our main street, and that might morph other businesses that would be more appealing to foot traffic and retail traffic. Upgrading the facades of buildings is a step in the right direction, but that could be a bigger catalyst in developing that area. We've got wide sidewalks already there, and it could bring us back to kind of that hometown feel. In terms of, again, the transparency of the process, we have this is not something that cropped up overnight. This has been something that's been in the works for at least 3 months, if not longer. The original proposals, which included Murzyn Hall, redeveloping the existing city hall, and a couple of other options, are at least a year old. And the Central Avenue, 40th Avenue development is at least 3 to 4 months. And at the risk of repeating myself, I'm going to repeat myself and say, as individual residents, we have an obligation to be informed and to take advantage of what we have available. We're one of the very few cities in our area that we are allowed to speak at our council meetings. Most cities don't give their members that option, and we have that option to be in council meetings, and that room sits empty. There's 1 or 2 or 3 people that are not city staff or employees that are in that room on Monday night council meetings. We should be filling that damn thing up, and we're not doing it. So we need to utilize our voices with a lot more presence and power if we have these issues. It's our obligation to stay connected to what's going on. We elect our officials to, and I'm sounding a little political and I'm sorry, but we elect our officials to represent us, and we have to trust that they're going to represent us, and if they're not doing that job, it's our responsibility to be in that room and let them know that they're not doing their job correctly. Thank you.
So what is the city council going to be asked to do next week? Is that what you said? There is some
Right.
city council vote coming up?
We're gonna ask them to commit to either going here or not, essentially, and then we would plan for what would be likely this other option over a longer period of time. And that, again, is being driven by a need to move this project to the next phase. So we're going to be asking them if they're ready to commit to a city hall location. One or the other, just for the sake of this project, that's the next critical step, no matter which way it goes.
So let's say the council says that they're going to commit to it. What's the timeline from there to where we're actually signing documents and say we're committed? Where's that wiggle room still?
So I'll go back to the disclaimer. Everything's fluid. Everything's a bit of a moving target. The goal under any scenario is to close on the sale of this property to the developer in 2018. That's what we're shooting for. for either a project that includes City Hall or doesn't. If it doesn't, it would slow that down, I think, because they have to retool and redesign the commercial side. But the short answer is as quickly as possible. We see the construction and redevelopment of this site in 2020 by all measures. That's what we're driving towards.
Does the old city hall get torn down then, is it available for future development?
Right, yes, in both scenarios, the City Hall gets torn down.
Got a risk question for you, lawyer. You seem hesitant when you're talking about the risk factor of all this coming together. We got a black hole up there on 44th and Central called IV. That we were having the same conversation several years ago, and anybody who commented against it or questioned or hesitated, they were, they hated Columbia Heights. So here we are again. So I want to know from you, you know more about this than anybody else. So if it was a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 was 100%, where are you at right now that in a year from now, that thing's going to be a tower crane sitting there and you're going to be digging dirt? Because our strikeout record's not too good at this point. I just wonder where you're at on that as far as right now today, because I hear hesitation in your comment on the risk factor side of your answers.
So hesitation, I think, is fair because nothing is 100% at the moment. I'm not going to go down to what I'm going to estimate success rate. We're going to try with everything that we have to fulfill this vision for the site, whether it has City Hall or not. And don't have any reason to believe that it won't happen. There are outside forces that we can't control, the global economy being one of them. We're certainly weary of that. That's part of the urgency to get this placed and rolling. Beyond that, when we made the decision to acquire the building, it was outside of that framework that it was important enough of a site to control and determine what happened there, even if this concept fell apart. That was always the calculus going in, that this corner is that critical, we waited this long, and we need site control to drive something special. So I think if it did fall apart, we'd be really disappointed and we'd move on and find something new to do at the right time. But it's critical by all measures. Another part of that calculus in managing risk was alluded to earlier by the city manager. The municipal ramp that we own now and owned at the time that the other owner owned the Northeast Business Center would have been handed back to them likely in 2021 for $1. So that urgency drove us to make that decision to purchase more than some of the other factors as well, because we secured our interest in both sites. We would have been giving up a site with a potential high value back to that developer that doesn't have a track record of performing for the city and certainly wasn't proposing projects that we were interested in. So that was, a calculated risk, but by all means, we have urgency and risk. Hy-Vee is we don't own, so that's not our financial risk at the moment. There's a lot to unpack around the Hy-Vee conversation, but definitely different as far as the forces that are driving what Hy-Vee's doing and what we're trying to do.
Apologies, I came in a little bit late, but is the cost of putting City Hall there being at half the price, is that really the only driving factor towards moving towards this plan?
I think that is open for discussion. In my estimation, it's the primary driver. I think that's very fair, and in my opinion, it is one of the primary criteria, obviously, as stewards of all of your resources, is to be as efficient as we can. That was our direction to Lattice, was it has to be compelling on cost, or why would we? If it's potentially half, that's compelling in staff's estimation, and does open our resources for other priorities for you that you might get more use out of, and as a stimulus for future growth, hopefully. But yeah, by all means, we know that those two bottom line numbers should resonate.
It's just that I think when you would ask people where they would expect the City Hall to be, I don't think they would expect it to be at the busiest intersection. So if money wasn't a factor, I mean, it seems like the standalone option in most people's minds makes more emotional sense.
I think that's fair. I would agree that if money wasn't a factor, unfortunately, we definitely don't have that luxury. Absolutely, we would do a standalone project. It would be my preference to control everything and do whatever you wanted. If you didn't have to concern ourselves with our primary concern. So.
And if we were having to shoehorn ourselves into that site, or there were other constraints and things that we were giving up to get into that site, that's also a factor. Operationally, it would be nice to be attached to Murzyn Hall. We could combine rec resources. There's operational efficiencies there. Now, are those efficiencies worth $4 million or $3 million? That's kind of the where staff is at, and that's a hard answer. But the good thing is, with the layouts that we're now starting to see, we know we're not being shoehorned in. We know we can have a really usable space and a really vibrant and attractive space for our council, for our residents. We have opportunities for the infrastructure, the data infrastructure, and those other pieces. You know, we're pretty fully built out. We're not going to be looking to add a lot of staff in the upcoming future. In fact, with efficiencies and technology, we're probably looking at retirements and having to really evaluate what we refill and what we don't. So then this space becomes much more attractive and usable for us, and it's not as much of we're giving something up just for the money. And that's something we've had a lot of discussions about that, is what are we giving up to get this? And luckily now, seeing where things lay out, it works pretty well. It lays out pretty well.
I'm curious about the real cost of living there. What type of heating, or are residents going to have to pay for the heat? Are there going to be Energy Star appliances in there? Or washer and dryers? You said luxury, does that mean there's a washer and dryer in each unit?
Indeed, yeah. So from an efficiency perspective, utility-wise, they're designing the most efficient system that's on the market that is cutting edge, okay? And I'm not the best guy, but VRF, so variable refrigerant flow system. There's a central HVAC system in the basement, in the parking, that is the highest efficiency option on the market. They each have their own thermostat and can control their own heating and cooling, but they don't have like the wall units that you're used to seeing in a lot of apartments that go through the wall, that are moderately efficient but unattractive in many ways. They're realizing at the New Hope facility 30% lower heating and cooling costs in the new building that they built with that new type of system. So it's a significant savings for the residents. They do pay individual electricity as part of the programming. And then the heating and cooling is built into your rent. So you're paying for it, but it's not a separate bill. But the most efficient system that's available.
And high-end appliances, and yes, washer and dryer.
Could you talk about IT a little bit too?
Okay, so yeah, for City Hall or City Hall IT, we're ready for some upgrades. So at either location, it is absolutely our goal to drastically improve all of that and our communications capacity. And this site, in our estimation, offers us to do more because we free up more resources to really pump into technology. So that's how we see it, I guess. But state of the art, out of all the facilities that we've toured, we want all of the latest and most efficient stuff that we can build in.
So my question for you is, about 9 years ago, we built a brand-new police station, fire station that we're still paying on. And in that plan that we got to vote on, that you were making it or pre-building it to have that second story, to have the council chambers and everything built above the police station, fire station, and that's how you sold it to the public. Why now are we looking at other options versus building it on the second story of a building that we had spent extra money to design that way?
I'm going to defer to Kevin and Kelly. Like, I wasn't here for that calculus.
So I can address the question partially, but I think the whole idea of, that building was built to have a city hall specific there, that was never presented that way. It was presented to have additional space on top of the work area within the public safety buildings, specifically over the police department, okay? That was one of the questions the council had too. So through the process over about the last 18 months, that was one of the things we wanted to look at. So we did have this architect look at it from both a space arrangement and from a structural arrangement. And, with some modifications, it can support a second story, but that second story is only going to be able to provide probably about 10,700 square feet. So we're short on the space needs analysis, so it wouldn't support the need of a new city hall. That building will not support third floor. So while I think people's perception was that's where City Hall can go, it was never presented that way, I think, from the concept of having a second floor up there. It was presented from having the availability to have space on second floor of that building.
I guess I heard it was made to have a second story so we could move City Hall there eventually. And I know we just built a library that the taxpayers are paying for. We just built that police station, and now we're also paying on a school that, so we keep getting all these options thrown at us, and we thought we were planning for the future by having that second story on the police station, fire station. So seeing some of these high numbers makes it very concerning, especially when we have to vote on this now, or you're going to have to pay this. So I guess I'm a little disappointed in the city when we were building and spending all the money on the police station and fire department, that we didn't build it sturdy enough to have enough room to house the city.
Right. Second floor could certainly go on, but the space of that, there's only so much space that can go on second floor.
Weren't you saying that we needed a smaller city hall because there's a lot of unused space in there?
Yeah, we did. So the existing city hall is about 34,000 square feet because police and fire were previously there. And with the updated space needs study, we're at about 20,000 square feet.
I can add to that a little bit. I talked to the architect who actually built our police fire station and asked him that specific question because that's what I remember being told us over the years. And he said no, because yes, it could support a second floor, but they never built in space for the elevators, the extra elevators that were needed. They never built in the space for the electrical and piping that needed to be going up there. So to add a second floor would be extremely expensive, no matter what size it would be, even if it would have been adequate.